Hi, my name is Wendy Delson, and my final presentation for MIT 812 will provide beginning violin students with an interactive program that they can use at home to reinforce concepts that were taught in class. It will also increase retention in my strings program because they will be working with their parents at home as well. My audience is beginning violin students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade who live in a culturally and economically diverse city in Connecticut. Almost 50% of my students speak a language other than English in their home, and more than 60% of my students are on free and reduced lunch. The objectives for my presentation for my students are they will establish good practice habits and work with their parents. Students will have an interactive way to extend their lesson into their home. Students will learn to hold the violin properly. They will be able to identify parts of the violin, and they will be able to identify the open strings on the violin. Students will hear and identify the pitches of the open strings, and students will pizzicato or pluck the open strings and say the names of the notes. Students will know how to care for their instruments, and to stress one more time because it's very important, students will develop good practice skills. I met the objectives by creating a Google slide presentation, and I want to show you that presentation. My first slide is my class rules about bringing an instrument, bringing music and a pencil, practicing at home, and keeping a record of that home practice. My next slide shows them the parts of the violin that I'd like them to become familiar with. My next slide shows them the open strings of the violin so they can be familiar with which string is the highest string, which is the lowest string, and where they're located on the instrument. My next slide has a fingering chart and where to put your fingers when they progress to learning how to put their fingers down and make more notes on the instrument. Next, I have a slide with a link to a tuning chart, and they will be able to hear and use audio to hear the sounds of each different string. My next slide is a YouTube video that talks about care and maintenance of the instruments. Here is a video that I made of a first lesson that they can use, and it is interactive, and they can play along with me, and they can invite their parents to play along with me also. My next slide is a teaser. In their second year of play, they will be invited to perform in our string festival, and I wanted to show them a little bit about what it is. And my last slide is just wrapping it all up, inviting them to share this with their parents. I feel that this presentation was a great learning experience for me. I wasn't really sure how I could come up with an interactive presentation that involved 3 different mediums, which I felt that I have done with animation, video, slides, text. And so I went to a Facebook page that I belong to that has string teachers and orchestra teachers as its members, and I threw out the question, what would you want to present to your students if you had to do an interactive video? And they came back with several ideas, which I did not use, but I did come up with this idea for an at-home lesson. And I really think it's a very innovative way that I've never seen another string teacher talk about or present, for me to involve my students and to really bring my classroom into their house. As a strings teacher, one of the biggest problems is that we only get to see our students for 1 hour a week. So this will be a great way to really continue the learning at home when they're not with me. I've really enjoyed making this presentation. I will be using technology in the future in my classes, and I can't wait to involve my students in making their own technology as well. And I really enjoyed this class. Thank you for listening to my presentation.